Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling, well, a pretty modern enigma, actually.
Mhm.
The surprising comeback, the resurgence of flat Earth beliefs.
Yeah, it really is surprising in this day and age.
We've got a whole stack of fascinating sources here to help us understand it. Everything from, academic papers and documentaries
hmm
to online chats and historical stuff.
Quite the mix. We've pulled from JSTOR Daily, Wikipedia entries on the Behind the Curve doc and Flat Earth itself, a social media journal looking at YouTube videos,
Right.
a thesis from Texas Tech digging into the why, conspiracy and religion,
Okay.
articles from SciPost on confidence, current affairs on how to even talk to people, PMC PubMed on the online chatter, a Reddit thread, even Astronomy Magazine and the University of Melbourne weighing in.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So a really wide range. And our mission today,
Yeah, what are we trying to do here?
we want to unpack this whole phenomenon,
Yeah.
figure out the core arguments, why they stick for some people,
Mm-hmm.
and really try to get why this belief hangs on, even thrives, when we're swimming in information, going beyond just dismissing it.
Absolutely. Let's try and understand the perspective.
So let's get into it. This modern resurgence,
Right?
where did it suddenly, pop up from? And how big is it now?
Well, one thing that jumps out from a lot of the sources is the massive role of the internet, especially YouTube.
Ah, YouTube, right.
Yeah, the study from the Journal of Social Media and Society really highlighted this. It found that, flat Earth videos aren't just there. They actually outnumber the debunking videos.
Seriously, they outnumber the debunkers.
Yeah, and they tend to be much longer, too, which means more watch time, more potential influence.
That's actually quite a staggering imbalance.
Yeah.
And presumably these aren't just getting 10 views each.
Oh, definitely not. That same study said just searching flat Earth can pull up millions of results.
Billions. Wow.
And the Texas Tech thesis mentioned one specific channel, Globebusters. A few years back, it already had tens of thousands of subscribers, millions of views.
Okay, so significant reach.
And the Melbourne University piece points out that YouTube creates this high context environment,
Yeah.
meaning people who lean that way can easily find each other, connect with the main figures pushing the ideas. It feels like direct access builds a community.
So it's not just lone individuals watching videos, it's networks forming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Texas Tech thesis notes they even meet up offline, Flat Earth International conferences and things like that.
Right. Real world meetups.
So the internet isn't just broadcasting ideas, it's actively helping build this shared identity, this sense of belonging.
Okay, so they're connecting, reinforcing these beliefs online and off.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the actual core arguments? What's the basis for saying the Earth is flat?
Well, the basic idea, as the Wikipedia page puts it, is just that Earth as a plane or a disk. It's an old concept, scientifically disproven, but
But they have arguments for it now. What do they point to?
often it's about what they see or think they see as direct evidence against the globe model.
What? Give me some examples. I've heard a few interesting ones.
Okay, a really common one mentioned in that Texas Tech thesis is the idea that water doesn't curve.
Right, the water level argument.
Yeah, the logic is if Earth were a ball, oceans should have a visible curve, right? Since they don't perceive that curve.
Earth must be flat. Okay.
Another big one is just not feeling the Earth move. We don't feel like we're spinning or flying through space at incredible speeds.
So therefore we must be stationary. That if we were spinning, we'd fly off kind of idea.
Pretty much. It feels intuitive, even though physics explains why we don't feel it. Inertia, gravity.
But that intuitive feeling is powerful. What else? Personal observations.
Yeah, exactly. The thesis mentions someone claiming they could see mountains in New Hampshire from Maine, about 70 miles away.
Okay.
And this person argued, using their math, their own calculations about curvature, that those mountains should have been hidden below the horizon if the Earth was a globe.
So they're using a sort of misinterpreted version of science to try and disprove the established science. Interesting.
It is, and then there's the UN logo thing.
Ah, yes, I've seen that mentioned. What's the
Well,
claim there?
The Melbourne article touches on it. Some flat earthers look at the UN flag, the azimuthal projection map,
Right, the one centered on the North Pole.
and they interpret it literally as a flat earth map. They see it as a hidden admission by the powers that be.
Wow. Finding confirmation in unexpected places.
No.
Okay, so that's the modern stuff. But this idea isn't new, is it? What about historically?
No, definitely not new. The Wikipedia overview is good here. Lots of ancient cultures, especially in the Near East, had flat earth cosmologies. That was kind of the default.
Until the Greeks.
Yeah, the idea of a spherical Earth really took off with ancient Greek philosophers. And it's interesting, ancient Chinese scholars consistently saw the Earth as flat until Jesuits showed up in the 17th century.
Huh. And what about medieval Europe? There's that common myth.
Right, the myth that everyone in the Middle Ages thought the Earth was flat. Wikipedia points out that's largely untrue. It was pushed later, mostly in the 17th century, kind of as anti-Catholic propaganda.
So educated people in medieval Europe generally knew it was round.
Yes, the spherical model was widely accepted among the educated elite. Now, historically, some traditionalist Muslim scholars did stick to a flat Earth view, but many others adopted the spherical idea from the 9th century onwards.
It's complex. What about other regions? India.
Vedic texts in South Asia have various cosmos models, some including flat disks. Later, Puranas often describe a flat circular disk, though some spherical ideas crept in there too.
And early Christianity.
Mostly spherical views among early Christian writers, actually, though there were a few notable exceptions who argued for flat. So yeah, the history is much more mixed and nuanced than a simple flat than round story.
Okay, so it's been around, but this modern resurgence,
Huh?
why now? What's driving it? Psychologically, socially? This feels like the real core of it.
It really does, and several sources dig into this. The Texas Tech thesis really hammers the connection to wider conspiracy thinking,
Right.
like the idea that NASA faked the moon landings. That often goes hand in hand. Their research found flat earthers tend to score higher on what psychologists call conspiracy mentality.
So it's part of a bigger picture of just not trusting the official story.
Exactly. Deep-seated distrust. The current affairs interview makes this point strongly. For many, it's less about the evidence itself and more about distrusting scientists, distrusting institutions, the government.
Mm-hmm.
They see themselves having woken up, seeing through a massive deception that everyone else is falling for.
That feeling of having special knowledge,
Yeah.
being awake,
Yeah.
that must be a powerful draw.
Hugely powerful. And here's a twist. Both the thesis and the interview point out they often see themselves as the real scientists, the true skeptic.
More skeptical than mainstream scientists.
Yes. They believe they're the ones properly evaluating evidence, while mainstream science is dogmatic or part of the cover-up.
Even though their reasoning might be flawed.
Right. The SciPost article backs this up. It found flat Earth believers tend to be really overconfident in their scientific understanding,
Wow.
while actually scoring lower on science literacy tests. Many claim they know as much or more than scientists.
That's quite a disconnect. High confidence, low literacy.
It's a strange mix, as Mick West said in that interview, a sort of respect for the idea of science, but a misunderstanding of the process and findings. Skeptical of established science, but maybe quite gullible towards things that fit their belief.
And it's not purely intellectual, is it? There's a social side, too.
Oh, definitely. That's crucial. The thesis and the interview both stress how it becomes tied up with identity, finding a community.
Right. Belonging.
Exactly. It provides that sense of community, shared secret knowledge. That can be really appealing, especially if you feel a bit alienated from the mainstream anyway. Connecting with others who believe the same thing is validating, can even radicalize views further.
And religion. Does that play a role? The thesis mentioned biblical interpretations.
For some, yes. Particularly a very literal reading of certain Bible passages that seem to describe a flat, stationary Earth with a dome or firmament over it.
Okay.
But importantly, the current affairs piece notes that even those with religious motives often try to frame their belief as evidence-based, not just faith-based. They'll still use the water doesn't curve arguments.
So it's this complex mix.
Yeah.
Distrust, community, maybe some overconfidence, sometimes religion, all amplified by online echo chambers.
You nailed it. And that PMC PubMed Central article gives us a useful way to think about the online discussions. They call it Esperantist epideictic discourse.
Okay. That sounds technical. Break that down.
Right. So Esperantist here basically means it's very insular, like they're speaking their own language within the group.
Uh-huh. Hard for outsiders to penetrate.
Exactly. Shared assumptions, shared worldview, constantly reinforced. And epideitica refers to the style of talk. It's more about praising their own side, their own beliefs, and blaming or denouncing the other side.
Rather than actually engaging in a real debate or looking critically at the evidence.
Precisely. Less dialogue, more reinforcing the in-group versus out-group dynamic.
Got it. So it becomes very self-sealing.
Yeah, and the article suggests that sometimes both sides, that the flat earthers or denialists and the strong opponents, the affirmationists, can fall into just making dogmatic claims which doesn't help productive discussion.
And we already mentioned how the YouTube algorithm can feed into this,
Yeah.
just showing you more of what you already agree with.
Right, creating those filter bubbles or echo chambers, it just deepens the divisions.
So it's a tough nut to crack. If just throwing scientific facts at people doesn't work that information deficit model you mentioned.
Yeah, the idea that they just lack information.
If that's not effective because it's about distrust and identity, then how do you engage? What do the sources suggest?
It's really tricky. Mick West, in that current affairs interview, really stressed starting with building trust.
Oh,
Calm, patient, respectful conversation, because the belief is tied to identity and community. Getting confrontational just makes people dig their heels in. You need that human connection first.
establish rapport before challenging the belief itself. Makes sense.
Exactly. Then he suggests something called methodological rebuttal.
Methodological. Okay, what's that?
Instead of attacking their claims directly, you focus on how they reach those conclusions, their method.
Questioning the process, not just the result.
Right. You prompt them to think about their own standards for evidence. A key question he suggests is, what evidence, if shown to you, could change your mind?
Mm. And if they can't answer that,
It might plant a seed of doubt. It highlights if the belief is actually falsifiable in their own mind. If no evidence could ever change their mind, is it really based on evidence?
that's clever. Subtle.
Another angle is gently pointing out inconsistencies in their skepticism.
Like the GPS example you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Like, you distrust the science behind rockets and satellites, but you happily rely on your phone, your car, airplanes, technologies built on the very scientific principles you're rejecting. Just prompting reflection on that.
So it's a very careful balancing act. Respectful engagement, focusing on their reasoning process, encouraging self-reflection rather than just debating facts.
That seems to be the most promising approach, though obviously very challenging. It's about fostering critical thinking, not just winning an argument.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've covered a huge amount here. The modern comeback, the arguments, the history, the psychology, the online world, how to maybe talk about it. As we wrap up, what are the main takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, I think it's clear the modern flat earth thing is complex. It's tangled up with conspiracy thinking, finding community, identity, sometimes religion.
Yeah.
The internet, especially YouTube, has been a massive accelerant, providing both the information or misinformation and the community spaces.
Right.
And crucially, you have to remember, people holding these beliefs often genuinely see themselves as the rational ones, the true skeptics uncovering a vast deception. It's not necessarily ignorance, but a different framework of trust and evidence.
Which leads to a bigger thought, doesn't it? Thinking about this deep distrust, the strong community bonds. What does it tell us about, wider challenges? Communicating science, building trust and knowledge generally in this age of infinite information.
Exactly. Is the key just more facts, more evidence? Or is it fundamentally about building trust, understanding the why behind beliefs, the worldviews shaping them?
Maybe the whole flat Earth thing is less about the actual shape of the planet and more a symptom, a sign of deeper shifts in how we see authority, how we decide what's true.
That's a really provocative thought to end on. It suggests the roots go much deeper than just geometry.
Definitely something for all of us to chew on. Thanks for digging into this today.
My pleasure. Fascinating if perplexing stuff.